long as someone has something to say, we'll be here at least till 8 o'clock. The purpose of this, really, we really wanted to hear what you think your city government should be doing, or maybe not doing. What problems do you see that the city has, and we would welcome any offer of suggestions to resolve these problem issues. You know, this body that's up here, and we do have Bill Bryan, I believe, is absent tonight, but this body doesn't have any kind of crystal ball. You know, we're not smarter than anybody else. We don't know a lot more than everybody else, even though we may be dealing with these kind of issues on a routine basis. So we expect and want public input in order to help us make decisions, and hopefully the right decisions for the city. What can this city do, or what does the city need to improve the quality of life, or maybe to keep our quality of life? Well, we've got, we've got a pretty good place here already, and we'd like to keep it that way, but yet we know things are changing, and what should we be doing to help keep it where the kind of lifestyle that we enjoy here now? Do you see any sources of revenues that we're not utilizing to help pay for city services? There may be more out there. There may be other ways of doing what we're doing, certainly. Do you have any suggestions of any city ordinances that need to be adopted or abolished or amended? I mean, is there things out there that can make this really a better place by changing some of the ordinances that we have existing? Would you oppose the city's water and sewer system merging with the Cherokee County water and sewer system if our current rates needed to be raised by 65% in 4 years? Do you support, or would you support some of these things? What I would like to do as well, we're not going to get to all these, we're not even going to talk about many of them, I'm sure, but I would hope that we can, once we have these hearings or town hall meetings like this, we could eventually send out some questionnaires about, what your thoughts are on different issues, and get your feedback. We may be able to do that with our new water bill that's coming out. It's going to be an envelope type 8.5 by 11 page instead of a card, and we'll be able to put something in there to do a survey on the issues that the city has to deal with. Oh, do you favor island annexation, in which unincorporated islands within or adjacent to the city, which may be surrounded by the city, would you favor the annexation of those even against the wishes of the property owners themselves? We're going to waive a section of our decorum tonight, which we usually post over there about how we're supposed to behave, how the council asks questions, or basically it's supposed to come through the mayor, and then there's not supposed to be direct discussion between council members and the public. Tonight we're waiving that. We're going to do that, hopefully, but we're not going to waive the part where they have to be recognized. And we hope that you'll be recognized based on your sign-in sheet here, and we will let you speak for whatever time you want. Now, this is not a public hearing on water rates at this time. I know many of you are here for that purpose, and it is an issue that we're dealing with, and we welcome your input regarding water rates, but the purpose of this is not just water rates. We're happy to talk about it. I wouldn't even mind allotting up to a half an hour for that, but we want to talk about some other issues as well. And if there are, if we run out of other issues, we'll go back to the water and sewer rates if you want to talk more about this. But this is something that we'll be discussing, no doubt, tonight. And so hopefully somebody will gain a little information there. But this is not a public hearing just on that issue. what I had hoped to gain here are some issues and thoughts and maybe a little direction, because the mayor and council are gonna have a day-long planning work session on April the 9th. It is open to the public, but the mayor and council and city manager will be the participants. We're gonna be talking about short-term goals, long-term goals, what we need to be doing. And that's one of the reasons that this is so timely, I think, is the fact that it's coming just before our meeting there. And we're not gonna solve all the problems in one day either, but we've gotta start somewhere. We've gotta start planning for what we really need down the road. And I think our water and sewer situation today is a result of some of the lack of planning that we may have had in previous times. So what I would like to do now, if we can, we'll go ahead and I will, if you don't mind, come up here. The camera is right on that light fixture up there, so that you will be able to, they can see you good. If you stand right here, and they see the council members and so forth, and hopefully be able to hear everyone very well. Okay? Mr. Cable.
Yes, sir.
Come on up.
Mr. Mayor, council members, most of you know me, and especially Ms. Pat Tanner, in relationship to what I'm going to talk about. We have a cemetery that's owned only by the city. It has 6.9 acres, I believe it is, and we have been working diligently cleaning it, keeping it cleaned up. The city has been doing a good job there, but you've got to pay that out. Unfortunately, it's got to come out of other coffers. We've been working at getting all the information gathered up that we can come up with for ordinances, permits, and what have you. And that's been turned over to Mr. Woods, and that was some time ago. And we're still waiting to go forward. I would be glad to have it necessary. The ordinance is there. The ordinances have been scrutinized in all the cities, but we haven't gone any further. Unfortunately, right now, you're looking at a piece of property that could very soon be of value in relationship to over $1 million in the coffers to the city. That in itself, if it were handled right, would save a little bit of money on the cleanup that's being done on most cases up there. By the way, we're having another major cleanup sometime in the very close future by the Mormons coming in, and they'll be up there doing a lot of cleanup. That will add more spaces available to us. And that's about all I have to say. What's your question?
Thank you. Does anyone have any, Jack?
How many spaces do we have now, or do you know?
Probably in the neighborhood of 1,200 available. You can add that up to between $400 and $500 per grade. You come up with your own.
And have we set someone in charge of doing that yet?
No. This gentleman right here is in charge of that.
Huh?
I'm passing the buck, Jason.
I can tell that, yeah.
I just want to say thank you for everything you've done.
Thank you, but we need to go forward. And Ms. Tanner has worked with us quite a bit. And I do appreciate her effort too. Thank you. But we still need to go forward.
I have been doing this school from that. We'll get there.
Thank you.
I promise you, we'll get there.
I have nothing else further. Thank you.
Thank you, John. We appreciate you work. You worked very hard. I know for years, even before I was here, for years on this issue. So.
Well, I just like, I have people up there, their mayor's buried up there. But it's gonna be-
We don't want to add any, do we? Okay. Andy Alexander wanted to talk about water and sewer fees. This one may take a few minutes, I bet.
great we have these town hall meetings. I think we encourage you to have more of them. I don't recall we had any of these in the past administration, so I welcome these type of meetings. I'm sure people here tonight will say the same thing. I had a lot of things to talk about, but at limited time, so we talked about maybe water and sewer, but I had other issues to talk about. You know, the city, you know, be frank with it, the city inherited a nightmare from the previous administration. And a lot of those things have to deal with expenses you're dealing with, long-term expenses from buildings and things like that. Just to name a few, the Hickory Flat Reservoir, the YMCA, this building, and other buildings in the town that you got debts you had to pay off. So you got a problem with getting revenues. So you can either raise taxes. One way you do, you can sell some of your assets. One comes to my mind is assets you can sell with Hickory Flat Reservoir. It's, I don't know how much money you get out of it, but we get our water from the Etowah River, right? So we can continue to do that, but that's a big tax burden. So if you're looking for revenue, and the city needs revenue, that'd be one thing you could explore. Maybe not sell all a part of it, but a portion of it. So that would give you some relief in raising revenues for the city. There's other properties you have that you could probably sell too. So to get more revenues, that's what the city needs, is you have to sell some of your assets or raise taxes or increase fees. That's about all you have left with. So that's hard choices you gotta make. So I would encourage you to spend maybe some time looking at the ways to raise revenue other than fees and tax increases, maybe some real estate, maybe vehicles that the city owns, and you could sell some of those. You don't need all of them. There are options available to raise some revenue from selling some of your assets, and I would encourage you to look at that. In terms of the rate increase, I don't have a problem with the rate increase, but I tell you, people who run laundromats, people in swimming pools, people use a lot of water, will have a problem with the rate increase. I do not do it, but other people do. I know where I had my car washed today, I hate to wash it after the rate goes up. I don't know what it's gonna be, but I tell you, it's gonna be more than $6 a month for me when the rate increases come up to hit these people supply their business from water. They're the ones really gonna hit on it, so you know that as well as I do. But anyway, thanks for having these meetings. I appreciate the opportunity to come here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. I would say regarding the selling the reservoir, I personally now, I would not want to sell the entire interest in that reservoir. I don't really have a problem, depending on the exact circumstances there, with selling a portion of it, because the capacity there, according to our own folks, would take us way far and beyond out into the future than most of us can ever imagine, the 25% of that reservoir. Not that you would never get there, but it'd take us a long, long time. I think there are some alternatives that we need to look at before we just jump and actually raise the rates by X percentages. We need to look at some other things. And selling part of that reservoir, at least in my opinion, some of the others may have to sell the whole thing or whatever, well, that's their decision. But some of the other things, certainly, we need to look at maybe cutting back on some of the items that were in the proposal that are the recommendation that the engineering firm made, because some of those things really may not be needed for a long, long time out, like a $27 million water plant. We're currently only using about 60% capacity of our existing water plant. The sewage system is a little bit different. The sewer plant does need some upgrading, there's no doubt about that. But do we need $5 or $6 million worth? Maybe, maybe not. I'm told that we're in the process right now of getting that permit moved from 1.89 million to 4 million gallons per day. And everything's in the hands of the EPD. We're waiting for their response. Now, we have a lot of problems with what they call I&I, infiltration and inflow, in which when it rains, a lot of water gets into the sewer system, and then you end up treating rainwater, water that you don't need to be treated. So if we get that permitted, number one, without doing anything else, we may be actually within the parameters or close to the parameters that we need to be in anyway, because we'll have a greater capacity there and we won't be over our volume limit all the time. And since the EPD actually, their requirements are not only in concentration such as milligrams per liter, but it's also in pounds per day. And when if you got the same concentration in the wastewater, but a greater flow, you have more pounds per day. And that's what puts us out of our requirements there many times, probably most times. So just getting this permit expanded up to 4.0 may well help alleviate some of that, not all of it. Another thing we need to look at really is doing an I&I study to determine where our problems are that this water is getting into the system, because after a big rain, you know, the volume, the influent there is just tremendous, you know. So it's coming into our sewer lines, leaking in somewhere. I think there's a lot of things to look at, and a number of things. In fact, you know, this council really has heard from our financial consultant regarding the current situation and some of our projected needs and so forth down the road. Okay. This council has not at this point actually sat down and really discussed those recommendations. We need to do that. We need to look at, you know, we need to look at the possibility of talking with the Water and Sewer Authority. I think that may happen. And, you know, they have 70,000 customers, we have 7. You know, it absorb a little cost better than we can, as it turns out. Probably not things we think about liking to do, but when our residents, the one thing I don't want to see happen is I don't want to see our residents paying a water and sewer rate that is far above and beyond what other jurisdictions in our area are paying. And just by increasing these rates, we very well could end up that way. So we've got to look at some other things. Cut back on the scope of work, you know, look at maybe a merging or consolidation, privatization. You know, there are private companies that come in and take over your water and sewer system and run everything. Well, you would think that, you know, to me that's probably the least one I would be interested in doing, but at least everything needs to be on the table and needs to be looked at. You think that there would be, you know, a lot more money, higher rates and so forth. They very well may, but a company that has quite a few water and sewer plants out there that they're running, you know, they also could absorb more costs than we could. It doesn't make sense, honestly, to me, to have a 5 or 6 different water and sewer systems within this county. It's not very efficient. It can't be. Cherokee Water and Sewer Authority, you know, I don't know that there can ever be any connection between us and them. I don't know that can ever happen. But it's just one of those things that we have to look at, I think. And I do think that selling the reservoir or a portion of that reservoir is a possible option that we need to consider as well. And this is by no means all inclusive or anything like that, but you know, we have raised the rates in this city since 2007. August of 2007, the rates have been increased by 22%. On an average, that's 43 months, on an average, that's about 6.15% a year, and we still can't make it. something's wrong. We're overburdened with debt, with the reservoir is one of the things, but that's not the only thing, I don't think. So, you know, back, they actually raised water and sewer rates, in 2000, none in 2001. They raised wholesale rates in 2002. They raised, retail and, residential and wholesale, in 2004. In 2005, a 2.8%, 2007 was a 7%, and this administration raised the water and sewer rates by 15%, the largest increase in water and sewer rates of any of the years, at least since 2000. At least since 2000, and maybe well before that. But that's still not enough. So we've got some really tough decisions to make, and you know, we welcome everyone's input, and I'll ask anyone else that has any comments to make those up here, and we'll move on. Bob?
Mr. Mayor, I spent about 2 hours at the water treatment plant this afternoon, this morning, and just to see what this $27 million plant, why it was necessary, and if this one was really falling apart. And while it's not falling apart, it needs a lot of TLC. And as the consultants pointed out, that it's going to be difficult to keep this one going. Plus, the fact that we can't expand that plant, and the capacity of that plant is equal to the amount of property we have permitted here that's just not constructed. So if we had another 1,000 houses built in Canton, we would probably reach capacity of the water plant. Although we're running at 3.2, in summertime we're running about 4.5. And the 1,000 was just kind of a rough number we threw out there, but from what I could see, and from the age of the equipment, because this plant was built in the 50s, that and there's no place to expand it, so that, you know, eventually Canton, if we stay in the water business, we're going to have to build that plant. And when the reservoir was built, it wasn't the condition of the reservoir, but I think the regional water people or whatever said that one of the things that Canton needed was a new water plant, because we're permitted to take 18 million gallons per day or something out of the reservoir. We can only process 5. And so we're, you know, I think if we're going to be in the water business, we're going to need a water plant.
Anyone else? Okay. Let's move on, and then we get through these names, and we'll be happy to open it up to others that may wish to speak. Steve Nelson. Talk about the dog park. I could have guessed that. I could have guessed that.
Mr. Mayor, ladies and gentlemen, I just wanted to take a moment. This coming, 2 weeks from Saturday, on April the 16th, there will be the opening of the first off-leash dog park in Cherokee County. And that has been a cooperative effort between the citizens and the city. And I wanted to thank the mayor and the council members, because without their support and encouragement, this dream never could have become a reality. Now, the puppies can't thank you, so I will. But if you don't have anything that you're doing on the 16th, then I invite you to come out to the park and watch all those happy dogs running around out there and see how they thank you. And because I do have the podium, with your kind permission, I'm going to move over to something else. Mr. Mayor, because you mentioned the quality of life in our community, I have been honored by Cherokee County to have been asked to represent the county to the Atlanta Regional Commission on the Senior Citizens Advisory Council. And I'm finding out a lot of things about the services that the county provides to our senior citizens that they don't know anything about. I found out a few days ago that there was an elderly couple that the roof was leaking in 10 places. And they didn't know that the county has a program to assist people like that in situations like that. The point I'm making is, I'm unaware if there's anything on the city level, communication to our senior citizens about the services the county has available. If there is not, then I would seriously encourage the city to consider, how do we make our citizens more aware of what the county has available? And if there is something that is available that I'm unaware of, I would appreciate someone letting me know, because I'd like to work closely with them. Thank you.
We appreciate that, Steve. I did get your email, and as I'm sure the members of the council did, regarding that and asking for input, and I appreciate you asking there. Once again, communication can be a problem, getting the word out, a lot of times, for what is available. And hopefully we'll be able to use, once again, maybe our water bill when we get into that 8.5 by 11, and have a little insert of different things from time to time, and to help keep the public informed, because then almost everybody gets a water bill, So, next item, Bill Grant, let's talk about our vision.
Okay, thank you. Well, I want to thank you, Mayor Hobgood, and the council for allowing us to talk about Canton tonight. And I saw the banner and the advertisement, so I took it as an opportunity for once not to get up here and complain about something, but to talk about what I see as great potential we have in Canton. I want to thank you guys for your service. I serve with a lot of my friends and neighbors on the government service study committee, and then we've seen your salary. I know you're not doing this for the money, and it's quite embarrassing actually to see how you guys are being compensated and all the work you're doing compared to some of our neighboring cities. But and I do appreciate the strides we've made in addressing the massive debt left over by previous administrations. I think you guys have done a great job and should be applauded for that. And also the attempts to kind of slow the unbridled growth that we were experiencing, and really kind of preserve our city and our quality of life for future generations. I'm a big proponent of preservation, and I fought for that, and I fight for everything that makes Canton a very special place. But I feel we're becoming somewhat complacent on our vision for the future, our creative vision for the future. I know there are a lot of tactical and logistical issues that we have to deal with, and you guys have to deal with on a daily basis, and things like water are very important. But I think it's time for us to get a little creative in designing the future of Canton, what we want the future to look like, and what we want the future quality of life to look like in Canton. Again, I think we have some great potential. It's got a new issue of my new favorite magazine, Garden and Gun. It's kind of a new version of Southern living, and it's not really about guns, but some people really like that. But anyway, there's a great article in this issue called Southern Dream Towns, and it's 10 small places with big ideas about food, music, art, and life. And I made you guys all a copy of this. Hopefully it can be some more fun reading and ordinances and things like that. But it really talks about really small cities like Florence, Alabama, or Milledgeville, Georgia, that are doing really great things, working with very little assets and really celebrating the diversity in their culture in their cities, and really getting national attention. And I think we could use a little bit of that creative thinking here in Canton. And I think we could use a few big ideas. I think Canton has so much potential. We have a lot going on culturally. We have a great, if I may put in a plug for the Festival of the Arts that's coming up May 20th and 21st. My friend Pat Gold is chairing that, so it's going to be great. It's going to be our biggest and best festival ever. We just had Hollywood in here over at the Art Center filming in our city. They see it as Hollywood worthy, and I think more so than we do sometimes on a daily basis. We've got a great, the Historical Society has opened a great museum celebrating our history and heritage. So we've got a lot of really great things going on. And I would love to see us spend a little time investing in the future and designing the future for the next generation. I have a lot of friends, younger friends in their 30s, even in their 20s, and I hear from a lot of them the sort of what are we doing for them? What are we doing to create a future for them in Canton? A reason to stay in Canton and not move south or move into Atlanta or even down to Woodstock or other places. You know, how can we increase the diversity of thought in what we're doing here and celebrate our diversity a little bit more? I'm serving as president of the Main Street Board, and that's been a great program, and I think we've invested a lot in downtown. James Gerard, and our fellow board members have spent a lot of time and efforts getting people back downtown, having great events, really fun things going on. And you know, we've had other people invest, like this High Ridge Partners investing in the old hole and creating a new place that now is landing, you know, a software company with 30 employees, you know, who see great potential here. We also have a new hole in town where the fire was, and I think the Main Street program is great, and we as, you know, citizens can, you know, do so much. We can, you know, create events and get people downtown, but I think that potential investors would love to see the city investing in itself, and I would love to see us kind of put some time and energy into how can we invest in the city, you know, improve our infrastructure. You know, could the city, I see a new hole up there where the fire was, and if some see a new hole up there, I'd hate to see that sitting around for another 50 or 60 years and not be developed. You know, I see potential of creating a great, you know, could the city get some grant money to create a great amphitheater there, a great open air park for concerts and movies, outdoor movies. You know, I'd love to see us invest in, again on my soapbox about a billboard on 575 directing people to downtown. A lot of people driving up from the city to the mountains every weekend, number one, don't even realize that there are shops and restaurants in downtown Canton or historical museum or art center. But a lot of people driving up there maybe would like to discover a great new place to invest in, to open a restaurant, to open a shop, open a day spa or something like that. And I think a billboard would really direct a lot of people downtown Canton. Some of you may be familiar with the billboard in Marietta that they've had for several years, that people look to that billboard as a place of finding information about what's going on in downtown Marietta. So, you know, I think we have so much potential. We have so many assets in Canton. We have the old grammar school, and a lot of people see that as a, you know, as a school that's falling apart, and they don't find a lot of use for it. You know, I see the potential for a great boutique hotel, a great quality place for preserve the structure, but repurpose it and create a place for business people to stay in downtown, spend their money in downtown. You know, a lot of see an empty historic theater on Main Street. I see a great place for independent film festivals or foreign film festivals, a place where I could go and actually enjoy a nice movie again. You know, maybe have a glass of wine and dare I say a bag of popcorn while I watch the movie. So again, I think just a little creative thought can create some great excitement. You know, I think one of our strongest assets is a river runs through this town, and the river is such a great asset, and so many other cities, you know, Augusta, Rome have made such great investments in their river walks, and I know I share Councilman Beresford's vision of connecting the parks with a river walk, which I think is such a wonderful idea, and I wish we would pay attention to a little bit more of those visionary type ideas. You know, a lot of people see, you know, dilapidated mill houses right here in the center of our city. I see opportunity developing great cottage homes for new starter homes for young families and getting, you know, young families living in downtown Canton again. So again, I applaud you for taking care of the routine business of our city, and we appreciate your efforts. And I just ask you to maybe spend a little bit of time in your upcoming retreat to just dream a little bit about what could be the potential of Canton, and let's create the city we want to become, and let's, you know, use a little bit of creative thought to realize our potential. So we have a great place, and it can only become better. So thank you.
Thank you very much. No one knows better than Bill that the alligators that we've been wading through for the last at least 3 years, maybe a little more, and it really has been very difficult to do planning and to look ahead and to, you know, to shape any sort of vision when you're fighting that situation. but we have made some progress to the point that I think we're able to begin to do that sort of thing, and that's why we are having this planning workshop, which is just one day, but it's a beginning, and I would hope that ultimately, if we make some progress there, hopefully that we would be having that more often and be able to shape something. And Bill and the Main Street program have all made a difference here in this city. There's no doubt about it. There's more goes on in the city of Canton now than there has for quite a long time. And but we do need more. While it may appear as such, I don't think we're quite as short on vision as it may seem, but we're short on money, a lot of it. And that has sort of dampened our enthusiasm to some degree to go out and do some investing and some projects and so forth that we really, really want to do. But I think that day is beginning to turn, and it's not gonna be a short fix, but I think it's gonna happen pretty soon. And we need that kind of thought that we just heard there to sort of shape what we're gonna become and to attract people downtown and into our city. And just make it the kind of place that people enjoy being and are proud to say that they live, where they live. They live in Canton, Georgia. Anyone else? Jack?
I want to say thanks for Bill coming up and speaking, because we talked about this, I guess, when we were first elected. Gene and I came in, and it is still our vision, and I'll echo what Gene just said, is, most of it's been because of the financial situation that we haven't been able to do many things, but know that this council, everybody on it, has those same thoughts. I mean, we all want to see it grow, we all want to see it be a better place for all of us to live, everyone. And we want to hear your thoughts. That's part of the reason for a meeting like this tonight. We've had one town meeting before, and we should do more of them. But there are things in the works to try to bring other festivals. June Gerard's done a wonderful job with the Main Street program. We brought her on not very long ago, and she's had some wonderful things already. And we need your input. We need to know what you all want, what you like, what you don't like. And there are lots of possibilities here. That you're talking about the mill villages, the houses, redoing that, the school system, maybe having some beds. We need some beds downtown. We need to be able to possibly have a museum downtown. But one of the big things that's holding us back is parking. And we still need to be able to acquire some parking for downtown, and that you need money, and so that's kind of held us back. But great thoughts, Bill. Appreciate it.
Anyone else? John?
Yes, I'm a newcomer. I've been here in the city for 5 years, but I've learned a lot of things about the city and what it's all about. And I know a lot of you already know that the mill was the denim capital of the world. Canton was. We need to explore how we can bring in some Levi's or Lee Jeans or somebody and tie into being a denim stopover again. Bring that type in. We also have a Canton golf course, and they had an Olympic-sized pool. That was the Olympic pool back in 1930. And if I'm wrong, Jack, I know you'll give me the right date, but that was the only one east of the Mississippi. We have a lot of things historical in this city that we're not capitalizing on. Bill, you brought out a great number of ideas. We've got to maximize that. And also, we're going to have a new entrance into the city as you come across the bridge and up the hill. And it's really going to spark new interest for the city. So there are things that we're able to accomplish. A lot of times people don't know what's going on, but we will bring it to you and let everybody know. So we're pushing ahead, but as government goes, it's very slow.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yeah, there's regarding that river walk connecting the parks, there's some activity that's going on there, there's no doubt. And there is some kind of behind the scenes activities on a number of other things that you mentioned there that, hopefully we will begin to, show some results before too long, hopefully. But, yeah, we got a great city, and we just need to look ahead and make sure that it becomes what we want it to. Anyone else? I think I'm just gonna call him Al. Al? Bardacki? Okay.
That's it, Bardacki.
Okay. Looks like you got one too many letters in there. What's that, J? Is that a J?
Yes.
Thank you.
Mayor, council members, ladies and gentlemen, thank you. Mayor, and council, I'd like to just say that, I have two things to talk to you about. First one is probably nickels and dime, peanuts and popcorn. And the second one is about the water and sewer thing that we addressed earlier. First, let me say that I've got about 25 years service as a budget person for Bell South. And I handle all the budgets for North and South Carolina, Georgia, and Florida those years. And I know how to cut back when money is tight. First thing I want to address is the situation that we face here almost annually, and that is the restriction on water. Presently, we're in good shape, but if a drought comes by again, we're gonna be asked to go on restrictions. And when you go on restrictions, revenue for the water and sewer people drops. But the water and sewer people that run the business of providing water and sewer have got to do something. It cannot be business as usual. If they have positions that are open, that need to be filled, they're delayed. Overtime is cut back. Stationery is cut back. And those things are critical in trying to control costs. Granted, labor runs about 70% of your total cost. So you're only talking about 30% of your cost here, but every penny counts. And that's what I wanted to say, that on the last drought that we had, I didn't see any cutbacks by the water company, by the city in trying to control costs. The water that we used was cut back, revenues were reduced, and before you know it, we had to raise our rates in order to get revenue to pay our people. So that's the first thing that I wanted to address. The second thing is about the water treatment and the facilities that we need to replace. Based on a piece of paper that I've got here in front of me, it looks like that we're short about $35 million. If I'm correct on that, I don't know if I am or not. That we need to find to improve the water treatment plant and also to upgrade our facilities for sewage. Now, there's a lot of things that need to be considered, and Mayor, you addressed a lot of them in your little comment this afternoon, and all of them have to be figured out. Somebody has got to do it. And when we get to the bottom line, I would like to see that on these new water bills, that a surcharge be put on there to account for that $35 million. That money should be identified separately, and when it's paid for, the $35 million, when those improvements are paid for, the surcharge is taken off of our bills. You all understand what I'm talking about here?
Yes, sir.
And because I want to make sure that any money, and the rates are going to have to be raised. I'll be the first one to admit that. And I'll be the first one to say that I can afford it. Based on some numbers that Rich Boyd has worked up, that he pays annually $390 a year on his water and sewer bill. And that with the 20%, 7%, and 26% increase, his $389 is gonna go to $575 a year. I could afford it, probably Rich could too, and there's a lot of other people could. But there are some people in this city that can't. And I'm gonna leave that up to you on how to figure that out. But, the gist of my comment is, I would like to see the cost separately identified on the bill as a surcharge, and when the payment for those water treatment plants are paid, I'd like to see that surcharge come off of the bill. And those costs are to be used only for those two facilities. Any questions?
Anyone?
Thank you.
Thank you very much. One thing that you, I don't know if you're aware of that I would just mention, particularly related to your first item that you talked about there was the budget and actually cutting back. And that's to me always the kind of the first place you really need to look. And I think maybe one of the reasons that you didn't see much of that is, like you said, like labor 70%. The city, as you probably know, has a contract with a group to manage the water and sewer system. So those employees are not employees of the city. So you couldn't really look to that labor at all. But when it comes to other, and we are required under a pretty good agreement, I guess, for them anyway, that whatever needs they have, pretty much we pay for. I mean, if something breaks, they fix it, send us the bill. We pay for the equipment. So it's something that, in my opinion, we also need to look at, is how we're doing that. That ought to be something we need to think about. Is there a better way to do that? But it does put you in a situation where you don't have as much flexibility in reducing some of the major costs than you would otherwise.
Mr. Mayor.
Jay? Oh, I'm sorry. Steve?
Mr. Mayor, with respect to the gentleman's comment about the necessity of the water increasing, and then the issue of those folks that are unable to be able to afford, the county does have a methodology in place now in its senior services division to determine on a sliding scale the services that are available to individuals based on their certain criteria.
Mm-hmm.
So that exists, and I'll offer that if the city is going to do this, and then try to determine, well, how do we accommodate the folks that don't have as much money as some of us do, there is a procedure already in place to do that, and I'm sure the county would share it. Thank you.
Thank you. Steve, Jack?
Two comments to what you said. One, and just following up on what Gene's already mentioned, we've been looking somewhat at all the different solutions to this, trying to find the easiest way to go about paying for this water. And one being that, yes, we should look at our own situation, not necessarily just go with what we've always done. It might be to our advantage to take a look at having our own water system, our own employees, things of that nature. It might be more advantageous to us. I've spoken with many cities at all these different mayor's days and different events that we go to. A lot of them, they do have their own people, they do have their own jobs they provide, things of that nature. But, that's just a possible solution. The second thing that I wanted to mention, you talked about taking the surcharge off, and I promise you this, if I had anything to do with it, it'll be different than what they did at 400. Once they got it paid, they continue to charge over there.
Yeah.
We would take the gates down and take it off. I think the rest of us committee would do the same.
Yes, sir.
Mayor, you mentioned earlier that we need to keep our water and sewer rates at least on average around, for the communities around.
At least within reason.
How do we rate now?
Well, that's a good question. We were supposed to get information today, as a matter of fact. Did you get
I think
some of
Mr.
that?
Wood has some of that information, but I don't know if he brought it with him.
You don't have that? That's a good question, because that was a question we asked the night that the financial consultant came and gave his recommendation. Well, that wasn't really what he looked at. He just looked at our particular needs and everything, which I understand. but he was going to get that back to us by the end of this week, and if, you know, I didn't know I didn't know we had it to this point.
Mayor?
So, yes.
If I remember when Mr. Wood was reading them off the computer, and I think he had just gotten them at that moment, our rates were not particularly high compared to other venues. There were other cities that were higher than us. There were some that were lower, but we weren't. We were neither the highest nor the lowest.
So we were in the ballpark now.
Yeah, I think we said we were about.
Out of the ballpark.
I think we're about 5% lower than Cherokee.
Okay.
And if we went to our 20% increase, we'd be 5% above Cherokee, something like that. I mean, that is rough.
We will have that information soon, though.
Just as a note, Mayor, 5 years ago, I moved from the city of Roswell
Yes.
to Canton. And my water rates dropped when I came to Canton by about 30%.
Well, you know, everything's costing more, and that's no exception, and in our situation, it's obviously, as we move along, it's gonna continue to increase. But, you know, we have, in the last, less than 4 years, we've averaged 6.2% of an increase every year, on average. You know, I don't know how long you can continue to do that and more if you're still having problems, and you need to look at some of the operational aspects of it too.
Yes, Mayor.
I'll be back with you.
I think those are points, but also the city's population base was, in 2000, about 7,000. 10 years later, we're 23,000. So somewhere, the rates had to increase. And those could be big numbers, but they also could be small percentage increases because of the large increase in population. So we gotta take all the different factors into account when we're looking at this. We're supplying 3 times in 10 years what we were supplying 10 years ago. And 10 years ago, I think Ms. Rush mentioned the fact that the plant was built in the 50s. So probably the plant max 10 years ago, it was built in the 50s. So we've been kind of eking along. Tuesday night was referred to as put some Band-Aids. Well, Band-Aids might work for a little bit, but then you're gonna need duct tape, and then you're really gonna have a big problem, because you're really gonna have some strain on the equipment. So again, we're taking all the factors into it and just saying, carte blanche across the board, oh, we're gonna do a 20% increase. No, we aren't. We're looking at what we need to do it properly, and if it's 20, if it's 7, whatever it might be. But there's a lot of factors, and we are getting some excellent input. So I think with that type of thing, we're gonna be able to make a sound decision. And I can't tell you what it is right now, because we haven't got all the factors.
Bob?
Well, just on the other side of the coin, because all we're talking about is raising rates. There is a program that's on the, well, in the book, so to speak, but has not been adopted by the city, that will allow residents to reduce their water rate, not by a lot, but by a little, by doing certain conservation procedures. And it would also apply to businesses. So I think when we look at how much we're going to increase the rates, we should also look at something there that would allow the citizens to do some conservation. And if everybody put in a rain barrel or something like that, the inflow to the wastewater plant would go down and our efficiency would go up. So I think when we put everything on the table, we should put that on the table as well.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Mr. Wood, is there any other signees up back there on the sheets? I didn't know if someone come in later and, okay. Well, that's actually all we have now.
Right back here.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Roy Taylor,
I didn't sign in, but I would
Okay.
like to if you have a moment.
come right on up.
I would like to say, things have changed. Things are much better than they have been in past years, and I think that this council and this mayor is part of the reason that things are better. So. We've got some really good things that are going on. And we cannot mention Ginger Gerard enough here about what's happening on the downtown, because she is bringing a lot. The energy that she brings with her. Yes, there's some ideas, things, the farmer's market, the historic downtown loop, that Main Street program is just doing a lot of things. We could use more help with that. The Fourth Friday programs. We need, I don't know exactly what we need for that. There's things going on, the retailers are staying open a little bit later. Advertising, maybe it is that billboard that's down on 575. Maybe it is some other things that we could be doing. You revamp the website, maybe it'll be a little cleaner, easier to see what some of the upcoming events are. There's things that are already happening that we may not have seen the answers to yet, but I'm seeing a whole host of things. My little project with the community garden, I'm maxed out, I need help. So Scott Woods gave me a call saying, hey, how can we make that work? Where can we find another piece of property? Looks like maybe this other thing over by the water tank might work, so thank you very much for that. We need to make sure that people know that those things are available, and that would help us build community. Because that's the next real task that we've got here, is we've started to get a lot of things in place, we've got some activities, and we've gotten some different organizations that are really starting to flourish now, like the Arts Council and such, that are bringing things here. And it's how do we develop community out of all of the work that we have been doing? And I think that that's some stuff. So yay to Bill Grant for coming forth and talking about the vision and how you can be moving that stuff forward. And for Pat Gold for getting a large recycling container costs down. It's something that I've mentioned several different times to the folks downstairs, and hands are tied, it's like, Pat got it going, and now it's, something's reasonable. Why wouldn't we want larger containers for everybody that can hold, can recycle that much stuff? We need to be encouraging those things, not making it more expensive to do those things. So it's really good to see that stuff is happening. It's already happening. So yay to these ideas that we've had, yay to the council for having these kinds of meetings here, and just by us seeing each other, we get to develop that community, and thanks again.
Thank you.
I'd like to ask, following up on one of the things that Roy said, I would like to ask all the people in the audience who have signed up for the Canton recycling program to raise their hand. A lot more could do it. And if you've not heard about it, you should check on the website, you should sign up, because what I signed up, and I'm getting points for your recycling, and you're not. So it's a valuable asset for the city. I mean, and it's good for the people, because it rewards you by enabling you to get discounts on local merchants or whatever. So I'd encourage you to check the website and sign up.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Along those same lines, I would like to encourage everyone to sign up for the alert notification system that the city has just implemented. You can go to the website and get information on that. And if you sign up for it, when we have emergencies or get warnings about storms or hazardous situations within the city, the system will call you saying this is the city of Canton calling you. So I would encourage everyone to also sign up for that, and that is on our website also.
Thank you, Ms. Tanner. I'm glad you reminded everyone of that, because that's a great program. And it's got a little refining to do, but I mean, it really worked a lot better than I thought it might the very first time we tried it, which was severe storms or tornado watches, I think, or warnings. So if you haven't signed up for that, please do. I mean, it called me on my cell phone and also on my home phone as well. So, it'd be very beneficial, and we'd love to have you participate in that. It's a good service. Okay?
along the waste management line, they had a flyer back there, but I don't know if everyone got one of them, but there's an electronic recycling day on Saturday, May the 7th. And also, I've talked to Ms. Tanner and some of the others, we're going to plan on having a day in Canton Park uptown, where we will actually have a little tent and have everybody come, have another day to come by and sign up for the recycling. Because I know Waste Management had one here, but we're gonna try to have a few more, and maybe have some at one of the shopping centers like Publix or Kroger or somewhere, where we get a lot of people coming in and out. We'd like to get everybody in the city to sign up for this. It will really help our city. It'll make it cleaner. You all will benefit from it, as well as anybody else. You'll be able to get items to eat or clothing or whatever. But it's a good program.
Thanks, Jack. Well, we have allotted till 8 o'clock, so we run out of names here. We would entertain, if we're willing to stay here at least till 8 o'clock. So if anyone has other comments you would like to make, we certainly would welcome you to make those. Anyone has anything they would like to say, complain? No, I shouldn't call it that, I guess. Anything you have you'd like to say? If not, we can adjourn, and it didn't take wasn't as long as I thought. I will say this, it's our responsibility to listen. We have to listen to the citizens out there, and to do our best to be able to take action to resolve certain issues or to accomplish things that the people that live here, you're our boss. I mean, that's what we're supposed to do. We can't always act on things people want because of a lot of factors, particularly money usually. But we are here, we will listen, and I think that, we'll take action wherever we possibly can. Mr. Al?
Mayor, one thing, really two things. This federal decree to bring our water and sewer system up to a certain level, what time frame are we talking about here?
Actually, what we have pending, at least, is a consent order, because we've had quite a number of violations of our discharge permit into the, from our wastewater treatment plant. I don't think that they have at this point given a certain limit. What they've asked for is a plan to resolve these issues. They want us to present to them, and in the consent order it says that we commit to a plan of resolving these issues. And they want to know what that plan is. They want to know it, and they want to make sure that we are taking incremental steps to achieve that over a period of time. But now, I don't think they've actually said you have to have all this at this deadline. There's a lot of possibilities with this recommendation that came about, and that, like I said, the water plant, while it certainly needs a lot, we don't have to do that 27 million tomorrow, because we still have capacity. And if you look at, we still probably got close to 2 million gallons per day, maybe a little more, in our, let's see, 60%, maybe a little more than 2 million gallons per day, the capability or capacity to produce that. And the average household using about 300 gallons, I believe, maybe something like that per day, per person. Maybe that's per person, I'm not sure. Any engineers in here? It's either 300 gallons per day per household or something. So you can tell how many houses from that, if you can divide 2 million by 300, you got a whole bunch of houses you could still build. There are 5,000 or 6,000 probably that you could build, assuming our treatment plant would last, physically last and meet the criteria for the quality of water that it produces and all that. So we do have that as sort of a hedge. We do have a little bit of a reserve, believe it or not, that the 07 and the 08 15%, if we hadn't done that 15% in 08, June of '08, and we wouldn't have had that. But we do have some, but we need to build. Our consultants say we need to really try to keep $1.5 million reserve there. And, you know, if we don't do something right now, we'll deplete most of that, within the next year or so. But we've got a little bit of time, but, I think I went a little further than your question was, Mr. Beresford.
I could be wrong on my number, I'll throw it out. If I'm wrong, I'll stand down on it. But in Senate order, I think the last one we got was $30,000. Is that right? 30?
I don't recall that. That may be a little much.
Well, it might have been a combination of a couple, but the fact is,
Could have been.
Jack, every time we get one of those consent orders, and I guarantee you with all this rain we've had in the past couple of weeks, we might find another one coming up.
You mean fines? Fines, yeah, not, there's just one consent order.
The fines, yes. So, those come out somewhere.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Until we get it fixed, we're gonna be looking at that type of thing.
Right.
So. Thank you.
If we don't get it fixed, they get higher. The fines get higher.
Right.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes,
I
ma'am.
would just like to add to your comments the fact that we do appreciate all of you coming out for this town hall meeting. The first meeting we had was initiated by Mr. Goodwin, and we didn't have this much of a crowd. And I do appreciate the fact that you all have shown up and the comments that have been made. This council has some tough decisions that has to be made within the next several months. And we value you and your opinions on this, and we will take them into consideration. But the tough decision, I guess the buck stops here because we're gonna have to make them. And it's not gonna be easy. This water rate issue is one of the tough ones that's immediate, and we do appreciate the comments that were made, and I do concur with Bill Grant in having a vision for this city. I think all of us up here have a vision, and some of the things that you've mentioned have been in the back of my mind, and I have talked to them with our city manager, and hopefully we can institute some of these ideas. We look forward to further ideas from all of you, because any decision that we make, we know affects you, not only affects you, but it affects us too. And just to reiterate that we do appreciate your comment, we do appreciate that your input, and do not hesitate to call upon us individually or collectively if you have any concerns or issues in the future. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Alexander.
Couple of comments, Mr. Mayor, and a recommendation, if you don't mind. So I look and see a lot of people here tonight, and what helped me personally to get involved in what's going on in the city was coming to 2 meetings a month, the council meetings. They have 2 of them. One, we talked about what they're gonna do the next meeting. You got a lot of information about what's going on in the city that you don't normally get. And if you come regularly, like I have for the last 3 years, when they talk about issues, I know what they're talking about. Now, if you don't come very often and they talk about something, you may not be aware of what they're talking about. So I would encourage, because it's helped me personally, to get more involved in what's going on in the city, but because I come to the meetings, you hear what's been discussed. And like I said, a lot of good people here tonight. This would be great if you had a council meeting, Mr. Mayor, to see this many good folk at these meetings, to get information on an ongoing basis of what some of the problems with this city has. And you know, the council and the mayor's done an excellent job doing this because, as you know, they had some real financial problems with the city when they came in to take command of it. So the more information you have, the better a position you are in to make recommendations what might be better for the city, that they can take the comments and move forward with it. So this is just my thought on it, so I thought I'd share it with you.
Thank you. Mr. Dobbs, do you have a comment?
Yes, the legislature is right in the midst of the water wars discussions, and the governor keeps talking about helping to build reservoirs. Has the city pursued the chance the state might put some money into this reservoir?
Not really, honestly, because, it's very doubtful. I mean, it certainly wouldn't hurt to ask, but, you know, there was some money put in the budget a few years ago for reservoirs, and none of it would apply to existing reservoirs or debt on existing reservoirs. I mean, believe me, I've thought about that and been desirous of that, some of those funds for some time. But, it's gonna be for new reservoirs, from what I understand. Anyone else? If not, I think it's
Can I
been,
just
oh,
follow
I'm sorry.
what
Yes,
Pat
ma'am.
said? I just want to say thank you to each of y'all who've come tonight. This is your city, and we appreciate your thoughts and opinions and ideas. Thank you very much.
Thank you all for coming, and, maybe we'll have another one before too much longer. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Roy Hill. County, anyone has, weather